The need to protect people from being victims of an exploit when people report it versus telling people they got a shitty piece of equipment that's easily exploited. If Rhythm Nation by Janet Jackson from 1989 was playing and it was the version that was sped up a bit, up pitched from E, so that you had bursts of bass sound at 84 cycles per second or so. Some Y2K era 5400 RPM or 90 rotations per second hard drives would fail, specifically in 2005 era laptops. So the solution that was given was rather simple. Even though another speaker system or just being near a sound system playing the music would do this, didn't have to be on your computer, the audio pipeline had a custom filter added in to detect and remove any frequencies that might cause this resonance in it. This didn't change whether you had a crash because your stereo at home would play the music loud enough to do it. Also, it should be pointed out some laptops that were designed only for solid-state drives did not include any precautions to prevent this from happening to their mechanical hard drives, and those had the same problems. If you're not aware of it, 80 and 90 cycles per second in that range is the resonant frequency for some part of any mechanical system that's based on a stiff metal platter or glass platter or any other material, if it is. And the thing is, there are no completely damped pieces of hardware in a computer laptop. CD-ROM drives have resonant frequencies that occur. Some CDs were put out that weren't actually imbalanced. They just had a resonant frequency for the material that was about the same as one of the many frequencies a music CD player could do. If you're not aware of it, music CDs, to compress the data more, wouldn't rotate an audio CD at the same speed all the time. It would speed up or slow down depending on how far the laser was from the center. Further out, it could run slower because it was running more material over the surface. Towards the inside, it had to rotate faster in order to have the same amount of surface area go over the laser. There weren't fixed speed CD players that did music CDs. That meant there was a whole group of frequencies you could achieve by just going from one point to another. And the RPM differences are available if you want to look them up from, I think, even the Wikipedia article. But the point is that the platter, at this point just being a CD, has a resonant frequency. You can see that with people deliberately putting them on a drill and spinning them up and watching them suddenly go to a point where it'll start warping and distorting into a bow tie shape. Well, the platter in a hard drive, if it is made too stiffly, will also do that. And it will achieve this in such a way that it puts maximum torsion on the body of the platter. The platters are simply pressed in place very tightly, very precisely, but if they resonate, they can creep and crawl relative to each other, which means things aren't aligned, or fracture, or cause, because they're warping and distorting, a head crash, which will start sandpapering off all the magnetic material on them if they're aluminum. In the case of IBM Travel Star, Desk Star, or we just called them Death Star hard drives at one point, some of them had ceramic or glass platters, which are really pretty, but they would resonate rather than shatter. The original purpose of the design was to make an ultra-stiff, ultra-flat surface that would do the Bernoulli effect where the heads would glide over the surface just slightly and very, very efficiently and be able to be spun up to even higher rates. But the other reason they existed, if you're not aware of it, was flash paper. IBM Desk Star and Travel Star hard drives, the Travel Stars being for the laptops, had a peculiarity that they were designed on purpose so that if you wanted to, you could take them out, locate the hub point, and smack them on top of a raised object at that point to cause the platters to bend over the hub and shatter on purpose. The idea was to make a hard drive that you could pull out of a machine and smack really hard on the edge of the cement or on a staircase to shatter them, to destroy them, so that data recovery would be impossible, for making them, this is also called flash paper mode, to make them secure so that if someone was to grab you while you had your laptop, you would have a quick disconnect, smack it, destroy all the data on the hard drive, and then the laptop would still be usable. And if you're not aware of it, some of them, not the IBMs necessarily, but some of them had a built-in ROM that would let you set up the computer, start it up, and it would run almost a command line version of Linux and let you use the built-in Wi-Fi to get online and tell someone, yeah, someone tried to grab the laptop, but it smashed the drive before they couldn't shook it for them. This was used, if you're not aware of it, by a very small number of somewhat paranoid, corporate people, and also by police departments. And yes, the FBI, CIA, and whoever else would sometimes buy them because it had that ability, if you want to call it that. That also meant that their G-force rating at 50 Gs was the same as every other hard drive until you went, well, really, just a little bit above 50 Gs on impact, and they would shatter. And not only did they shattered like a piece of tempered glass or something. They would popcorn, making data recovery absolutely impossible if you did it right. And I have demonstrated this for someone after their drive went bad. I took the data disks out, cleaned off the magnetic material so it was completely destroyed data. They had wanted me to demagnetize it, which means the drive would never start anyway, because it needed to have some of that data for tracking. And then I chemically stripped and then physically removed all of the metal to prove that it was a ceramic layer, a ceramic platter with a magnetic media layer. And then he said, can you prove that it does the shattering trick? And I went ahead and made a see-through top for it to contain all the fragments, and so I wouldn't have to open it again. And then demonstrated what we call the Death Star smack, or how to permanently defrag, or ultra-secure deletion mode, or every other euphemism you wanted to. But we called it the Death Star maneuver, usually. And that was because a lot of them with the glass platters were specifically made to where you could pull them out of a rack, smack them, and destroy them. This was also depicted in one hacker movie about using glass platter hard drives. I'm not sure it was referring to that specifically. So let's review. Rhythm Nation, Janet Jackson, 1980s song playing on a loud sound system. If you had a 5400 RPM or 90 rotations per second hard drive, would sometimes respond to a slightly off frequency, specifically at 84.2 cycles per second, and it would cause it to crash the computer or misalign it or whatever. And more intense signals and sounds would also affect other hard drives and other computers simply because they weren't properly damped with rubber stopper material or whatever. That's why there's rubber grommet on those hard drives. And yes, there was an actual James Bond-ish delete all the data and totally fragment it glass platter hard drive produced that on purpose was made that if you hit it hard enough, it would not just break the platters, it would shatter them into almost powder mode, making data recovery overtly, on purpose, visibly impossible. And yes, there were a couple of dozen that I've seen that had a see-through surface on them so you could show someone you did it, just in case they were after you for the data on the drive. And if you're not aware of it, flash paper, it was a type of paper used by bookies that was based on getting a magic trick kit from the novelty shop to make any paper ignite rapidly by making it very high temperature flammable for a very short time, as safe as possible. But you would put it on paper so that you could take your bookie list, and if the cops showed up, you'd put it all in a tray, touch a match to it, and it would be gone, and literally there wouldn't even be ash left over. I don't remember what the compound was. So this has been your trip through the tulips, or tripping over memory lane. Anyway, there will be a couple of videos and a couple of website links below discussing it. It's actually a pretty well-known piece of information, and it isn't just an urban myth. It should also be pointed out that other pieces of music do have the same resonant frequency going on, but again, specifically Microsoft Corporation altered their software to alter the audio to secretly hide the signal so it wouldn't affect that one company. And I'm not saying it's IBM Travel Stars. It actually affected other hard drives, but it may have been that one specifically. And it may have been done for all laptops and computers, getting rid of one note out of all of them because it affected hardware and became a cybersecurity risk that was actually noted in some very paranoid groups of people. Also, it should be pointed out that you were not allowed to play Rhythm Nation by Janet Jackson in many secure locations after the year 2005 at all, in many locations, it would be treated as an existential threat for some reason. Imagine an entire room full of hard drives that were sensitive to this, that were used at NSA or at Google. One of the reasons we use solid-state drives is because they're immune to this. They have other completely unrelated horrible problems, by the way. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck.